They're a particular kind of man you notice becoming more powerful, not more defeated with each setback and disappointment. You observe him in his late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and something in you recognizes it. Wait, why does he seem stronger after loss, more grounded after failure? How is it that falling down seems to be building him up rather than breaking him down? It's not simply that he has skills or qualifications. Countless men accumulate credentials and still feel hollow inside, still carry the weight of unprocessed defeat. With him, something is distinctly different. There's resilience in his eyes rather than bitterness. There's humility in his presence that hasn't calcified into self-defeat. There's a genuine strength that has nothing to do with dominance and everything to do with what his character has been forging quietly through every failure. Jung would recognize this. Men like this have begun to operate from an integrated center. They've released the need to always win. They've stopped trying to prove they're still the ambitious kid they were at 22. They're engaged in a profound internal conversation with their failures, their weaknesses, their fears, the very things most men spend their entire existence denying. And this dialogue produces a distinctive inner quality that fundamentally transforms how they move through challenge. Before we continue, pause with me. If you've ever thought I don't want to just accumulate wins, I want to become a man who turns his failures into wisdom, then comment the word unbreakable below. Just that single word, no explanation needed. You're simply acknowledging this moment. I want to succeed differently, not by never falling, but by learning to rise with grace. And if you consistently find videos like this exactly when your spirit needs this message, please like and subscribe. At the conclusion of this video, a playlist appears. Save it. When you sleep tonight, let it play softly. Your body will rest, but your mind will continue absorbing these truths into your deepest layers. Now, let's explore this rare inner quality that men who fail forward tend to embody, often without realizing it. The world tells you that success is about winning consistently, staying strong, never revealing weakness. And yes, there's nothing wrong with ambition, discipline, building your capabilities. That's part of respecting the vessel you inhabit but you've probably noticed two men can have identical ambitions, same access to opportunities, same age, same background, and one carries a quiet confidence while the other radiates desperate hunger. What's the difference? Jung would say, the rare inner quality is integrated failure into not perfection, not endless winning, not pretending setbacks didn't happen. Integrated failure into the courageous decision to stop living at war with your defeats and start making peace with what you've lost, what you've learned, and who you're becoming through it. Most men never do this. Most men age from a place of denial, more failures buried, more pride wounded, more regrets about paths not taken, more self-criticism about mistakes, more stories about how things should have gone. A man who succeeds differently begins to age from a place of integration, not denial, failure by failure, he stops exiling the younger version of himself who made bad calls. He doesn't hate him, he learns from him. The parts of himself that felt weak, scared, uncertain, he doesn't deny them anymore. He owns them and works with them. The times he played it small out of fear, the times he hurt people because of his own insecurity, the times he chose comfort over growth, he doesn't shove those down. He listens to what they're trying to teach him. This integrated approach does something to his face, his posture, his presence. The tension he used to carry in his chest from constantly bracing for the next fall begins to ease. The hardness in his eyes from all the times he felt like a failure starts to soften, not because life suddenly became easier, but because he stopped telling himself that falling meant he was less than. The way he carries himself changes. There's less armor, more authenticity, as if he's stopped performing strength and started actually embodying it. If this is stirring something in you, if you can feel the ways you've been aging through denial instead of integration, take a second and like this video. Inner integration is rare because it asks something most men avoid. Stop building your identity around your wounds. Jung talked about complexes, these emotional bundles that become gravitational centers in the psyche. For many men, the main complex becomes, I am the one who failed. I am the one who wasn't enough. I am the one who lost what mattered. I am the one who should have known better. These stories might contain truth. You have failed. You have fallen short. You have made choices that haunt you. But men who succeed differently refuse to let those stories be the final definition of who they are. They grieve fully. They admit it. Yes, I failed there. Yes, I wasn't enough there. Yes, I lost something precious there. But then they ask the harder question, and who am I now beyond that failure? That question alone starts to free a man, because shame wrinkles the soul before it wrinkles the face. when you carry secret shame against yourself, against your body, into, against the choices you made, against time itself. It shows in your eyes, in your jaw tension, in how quickly you snap, in how tightly you hold on. Into, integration doesn't mean pretending nothing went wrong. It means refusing to stay frozen there. The man who succeeds differently learns slowly. Into, I can honor what I survived without making my survival my whole identity. I can carry wisdom from the fire without smelling of smoke forever. To men with this rare inequality also make a subtle but powerful shift. They stop measuring their life only by external metrics. How much money have I made by this age? Into, how far have I climbed? How do I compare to my peers? Those questions don't disappear, but something deeper starts to matter more. Am I more honest with myself than I used to be? Into, am I more courageous in facing my fears? Am I less willing to compromise my integrity for comfort? Is my inner life richer? Into, even if my external success looks different than expected. Jung would call this moving toward individuation, becoming who you actually are, not who you were told to be. Into, and that kind of becoming where every decade brings you closer to authenticity instead of further into performance, creates a presence nothing else can substitute. Into, think of the men you know who seem to command more respect at 50, 60 than they ever did at 25. They may not fit the conventional image of success. Into, but there's something in them that feels complete, not complete as in finished with life, but complete as in done with pretending. Into, don't twisting themselves into shapes that don't fit, don't proving themselves to people who will never believe in them. Into, don't hating themselves for the missteps that made them who they are. In the midst of ordinary days, they choose small acts of allegiance to themselves, to speaking up instead of staying silent to keep the peace, setting a boundary instead of absorbing everyone's weight, admitting, I don't know, instead of faking certainty. Into, letting themselves cry, laugh openly, show vulnerability. These choices sound small, but repeated over years, they carve lines of character into a man's face. Into, the jaw that used to clench with unexpressed anger relaxes more often. The eyes that used to scan for threats soften with actual presence. Not because everything is perfect, into, but because he's stopped holding his truth like a prisoner. If this feels like the man you're trying to become, even if you feel far from him right now, into, pause and type unbreakable in the comments if you haven't yet. You're not declaring that you're already there. You're declaring that somewhere inside, into, you want integration more than you want to keep performing. Men who succeed differently also change what they worship. In earlier years, you might have worshipped achievement. Into, if I accomplish this, I'm okay. If I'm still capable, I'm okay. If I'm stronger than other men, I'm okay. But achievement is a brutal god. It devours energy and never feels satisfied. A man who succeeds differently begins to worship something else, truth. Truth about what you actually feel. Truth about what you want. Into, truth about what's working and what's slowly killing you. Truth about where you've been lying to yourself just to maintain an image. Into, that truth-telling is terrifying at first because once you admit, this career is draining me, or this relationship is shrinking me, or I've been numb for years, you can't unknow it. Your body starts to rebel. Your mind starts to replay the reality. Your soul starts asking, so what are we actually going to do about this? To most men, shut that voice down. Men who age into their real power gradually stop shutting it down. They still get scared. They still delay. But over time, into their commitment to truth grows stronger than their fear of change. That's why they start seeming different, more solid, more real, more trustworthy. Into, you can tell when a man has made a habit of lying to himself. There's an evasiveness, a defensiveness, let's not go there, in his energy. Into, you can also tell when a man has started building a habit of being honest with himself. There's congruence between what he says and what his body reveals. He can admit, yeah, into, that broke me, without collapsing forever. He can say, I stayed too long, without living in endless shame. That congruence is the rare inequality. Into, it's the soul no longer fragmented into 1,000 masks, but slowly gathered piece by piece into one integrated man. Jung would say that as this happens, into, a man becomes less identified with his persona, the mask, the role, the image, and more aligned with his authentic self. The self doesn't age like the body does. The self deepens, into, strengthens, clarifies. So when a man's identity starts to shift from how much can I achieve to how honest, how whole, into how authentic can I be, his outer aging begins to reflect inner maturation, not just wear and tear. That's why some men at 60 feel ancient and bitter, while others feel like steadfast oak trees, grounded, strong, wise. It's not luck. It's the integration work. It's making peace with failure. You might be thinking, into, but I've wasted so much time. I've been at war with myself for years. Is it too late for me to succeed differently? That's another lie the world feeds you, into, that your window closed at some arbitrary age. Here's Jung's truth. The site doesn't operate on LinkedIn's timeline. Your soul doesn't care that you didn't figure it out by 25, into 30 or 40. Your soul cares that you start at whatever age you are by turning toward yourself instead of away, into. The moment you begin to integrate your failures instead of constantly rejecting yourself, something in your success begins to shift into. You might still see the physical marks of what you've lived through. Grey hair, a worn body, lines that tell your story. But your eyes will start to look clearer. Into your presence will start to feel like a place people can rest, not a performance people have to decode. If your heart is whispering, I want that. Even if your mind is skeptical, into take a breath. You don't have to transform your entire life tonight. Begin very small. Into catch the moment you call yourself a failure and replace it with I am learning and I choose to treat myself with respect. Notice the moment you reach for distraction because you can't face your fear, into, and instead sit with that fear for 60 more seconds before you numb it. Tell yourself one more truth today than you did yesterday. This is where the rare inner quality is built, not in grand gestures, but in tiny, repetitive acts of self-honesty and self-respect. Each act alone doesn't look like much, but over months and years into, they become written into your face, your presence, your energy. That's why some men in their 50s suddenly start looking more powerful than they ever did in their 20s. Into, not because of magic, but because they finally stopped trying to be someone else and let their real essence show through. If this spoke to something deep in you, into, please like this video and subscribe so your future self has somewhere to come back to on the days he forgets how far he's come. As we move toward the end, into, I want to speak directly to you who looks in the mirror and sees only what's wrong. The lines on your face that map every time you worried about everyone but yourself, into the softness in your body that tells the story of survival, of stress of nights you stayed awake, the tiredness in your eyes that tells the story of how you showed up, into even when no one showed up for you. You could stand there and judge him, or you could finally make peace with him. You could say, I'm sorry I've been brutal with you, into, I'm sorry I believed you were running out of time. I'm sorry I've spoken to you in ways I'd never speak to a friend. I am older now, yes, but I am also wiser, stronger, into more awake. From today, I choose to age as a man who walks with himself, not against himself. That decision is the beginning of succeeding differently, not by winning more, but by becoming more real. If some part of you is ready, even 1% ready to make that shift, type Unbreakable in the comments now if you haven't already. Into, let be your declaration. I'm willing to integrate my failures. I'm willing to become whole. And if this message wrapped around your heart, please like this video. Into, subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. When you sleep tonight, that's when the old voices often get loud. You're behind. Into, you should have figured this out by now. Look at what you've failed at. Instead of letting those voices run the night, give your subconscious something else. Into, the playlist is at the end of this video. Let it play softly as you drift off. Your body will rest, but your mind will continue listening. Keep loosening its grip on shame to keep rewriting the story from I am my failures to I am becoming integrated and whole. Save the playlist. Fall asleep with it. Into, let these messages sink from your mind into your soul until one day you catch your reflection unexpectedly in a shop window, a mirror, a photo you didn't overthink. Into, and instead of flinching, you feel a quiet, surprising thought. I look like someone who has lived. I look like someone who has failed and learned. I look like myself, and he is aging into his power.